Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today we are talking about how to create a stylized toon shader look within Redshift. It's not a perfect solution, but it can definitely get you nice results, and it works with depth of field. So let's jump in and see what it's all about. Okay, so how to create a stylized toon shader within Redshift. So I started researching this a while back because I really wanted to be able to put depth of field on the toon shader within Cinema 4D. Unfortunately, it's not possible without doing a lot of workarounds. So I started to investigate if there was a way that I could get a toon shaded look within Redshift. And what I found is there is a system. It's not perfect. It's a little bit of a hack, but it does work, and it can get you actually kind of a cooler look. It's more of a, it's less of a traditional look, and it can be something that is, less expected. So that's what we're going to talk about today. This is going to be more of an advanced lesson, and it is geared mainly towards building the shader and just kind of how we're going to do this. So let's jump in and see how it works. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by creating a new shader. So the first thing we want to do is let's go here, and then we're going to step in to our new material that we created. And inside this material, we're going to have our base layer. So let's go ahead and put this on top of the lion, so now we can see it. And the first thing we want to do is we want to recreate this kind of let me pull up my picture viewer here. We want to recreate this kind of gradient look that I have here, and it's actually really simple. I did it through just a Fresnel shader. So to get that look, let's come over to our shader graph here, and let's go to materials, and let's just type in Fresnel. Okay, let's take that Fresnel and let's just see what it looks like in the viewport. So right away you can see we have that black to white gradient that's happening, and all a Fresnel is basically based on which way the camera is facing, it'll be one color, and which way it's not facing, it'll be another color. It's pretty simple. So anything that's facing the camera right now is going to be black. Anything that's facing the not facing is going to be white, and then it's just going to do a fall off. So let's go ahead and change the colors. So let's go ahead and make facing color blue, and then let's make the perpendicular colors red. So right away you can see we're starting to get kind of that look that we had. And then once we're in there, you have a couple options. So you can use the index of refraction, which is basically how it's going to react how like a reflective material would. So based on your camera position, again, it's going to change. I can demonstrate by just kind of coming around here. You'll see that it just kind of changes with it, right? Okay, and then you can come down here and adjust that to however you like. So for right now, we're just going to leave it the same. And then you can also say don't use the index of refraction, and you can come in here and you can just kind of dial it in manually and get even a more kind of toon shaded look. But for me, I think the index of refraction is nice because it's a little more realistic. You know, there's something about it that is just, it just feels a little nicer, a little less cartoony. Because again, this is, you're not going to get a toon shaded exact look with this. You're going to get something that's a little more stylized. So I'm pretty happy with that. So that's cool. So that's the first step. Create the Fresnel. So let's take that Fresnel now that we've seen it, and let's put it into our material and our diffuse color. And then I'm just gonna take my material, and now we're gonna put that in, and you'll see instantly we have we need to turn off our reflection. And now we have something that is actually able to be lit by environment. So underneath the hood here, I have some lights that are happening, which this is not about, but just so you know, I do have a few lights happening here, and that's what you're seeing. So that's cool. So we have that. So now we've already got like a pretty nice like stylized look, I feel like. The next step is creating the outlines, and this is really was a challenge, is to figure out how to do this and how to do this like in a manageable way. So the first thing we want to do is we need to get the outlines of this geometry, right? We need to get the curvature and everything, and that's exactly what we're going to use. We're going to use something called a curvature node. So if you come over here and you type in curvature under textures, you can bring that in. And what curvature does is basically it finds all the curvature within your geometry and it applies a black and white map to it. And I can show you, I'm going to pipe it into the output here. So right away in the output, you can see that we have white based on the what is it set to? Right now, white is based on the if something is going out, and then black is if something is going in, and then you can switch that to concave, and it'll essentially flip it. And then next, what you can do is you can kind of dial this in. So based on your geometry, you're going to have various settings. So how this works basically is your radius is the first step. So this is kind of like how fat it's going to be. So the higher the values, the softer it's going to be. And I think for a toon shaded look, we want it to be thin and kind of delicate, right? So let's see. So if we come in here, we want these lines to be nice and thin. So I don't think personally that looks like a toon shaded look to me. So if we come in and we kind of thin them out, maybe something like that. Let's go back to our hero. Yeah, sure, that's fine. So right now we're just looking at how thin everything is. The next step would be to come over to our next tab over here, which is remap. In the remap settings, this is where you can kind of control your contrast, right? So this is where you can control how much black and how much white is seen. And so if I come in here and I say my minimum black values have to be this, you'll see instantly it's going to introduce more black for us, therefore creating more contrast, which is good. That's what we want. But what happens is you start to lose some detail, like maybe you want all that detail. For me, it's a little too much detail, so I kind of want to go somewhere in between. So I'm going to just kind of pull this. And then I think the white can just stay up as it is, because I think it's good to have those sharp lines. Like we want it to be as white as possible. So maybe something in there, right? And then we don't really need to mess with contrast right now. That's fine. And then this is kind of like your gamma control. So bias is your gamma, and I assume that gain is kind of like your white values. But for me, all we need to mess with for now is just the input and the input range of the min and max. So that's cool. So we got that. I think that looks pretty nice. It might be a little too detailed. We might want to come over here and just, these lines might be just a tiny bit too sharp. Do something like that. I'm responding to this area where the face is. All right, so we have a base now, right? We have our outlines, and with contour, what's different between contour and Fresnel that's interesting is contour sticks to it. So no matter what, these lines are going to always be there. Whereas Fresnel is based on your how it's facing the camera. So we don't, in this situation, we want them to stick as much as possible. So that's cool. So we got that. The next step is going to be that we need to combine these and just see what happens. So to do that, we are going to go to Materials and then Material Blender. And for Material Blender, we want to come in here and we want to set our base color to be our Fresnel, right? Because our base, that's our base. That's what's inside. And then let's see what that looks like. All right, so we have the exact same thing. So nothing's happening now with the Material Blender because we have to add something on top of it. So you can think of this as Photoshop, right? So we have our base layer, and now we're gonna add layer 1 on top of it. So if I come over here and I take my curvature layer that, once again, we just created, I take that and I go to layer 1 and I set this to the blend color. Let's see what that looks like. So right now we're not seeing anything, and the reason why we're not seeing anything is because for our layer 1, we need to set the layer color, right? So let's do that. So I think it's nice just because it creates more interesting effects to actually use a material for this. So we could use a constant, we could use just a solid color as our layer color, but I personally think it's nicer to actually set a material, because that way you have more control. And if we want to just make it solid, we could still do that. So let's take a material and let's pipe it in to our layer 1 color. As soon as we do that, you'll see that we start to get these, our matte. What's happening is you have to think of this as like a matte. So if you're familiar with After Effects, this is essentially like a Luma matte. So it's basically doing a Luma matte on top of this material. So this material is right here that we just created, and then we're just cutting it out with this matte. And that's all that's happening here. So we're saying that this is our color, and then we want to matte it out with this black and white matte. It's all about keeping it black and white, at least for this situation. So now we need to figure out what this material is going to be. What is the what are these strokes going to look like? And for me, I think it's good to keep them somewhat traditional, right? So let's come in here and let's just pick, I don't know what color I picked. I picked something like this, maybe a little more blue. Because again, we're not going for necessarily real. We're going for like a stylized type look. I definitely did more blue. It's starting to get there. And what's cool is, like, if you come in here, and this is not necessarily cartoony, but what's really cool is you see we're getting some reflections in here, right? Like, because again, we're using this material and we're just matting it with this matte. So we have reflections if we want, but for our purposes, I don't want reflections. So we're going to turn the reflections off. We're just going to drag that down to 0, but you'll see if I turn it back up, you get some shiny spots here. We're gonna turn that back down. So now, if we come out, we're starting to get kind of close, right? I mean, it's actually almost looks better in a weird way. I mean, I'll show you some more details here, but I like the colors better actually on this one. So if we come out, so that's essentially the simplest of it, right? But what if we want to add a little more detail or make this, just a little more interesting? So the thing that I'm not in love with is I wish that on these edges right here, I had a little bit of an outline, or had the opportunity to have an outline. So let's create that, because right now with the curvature matte, it's really, at least I wasn't able to do it. It's really difficult to get that. I wasn't able to figure out a way to get it to go on the outlines. But what I did find is that if I took a Fresnel and I take this Fresnel and I come in here and I start messing with the settings a little bit, I think this is one of the situations where it's better to actually turn this off. Then you can really kind of mess with the settings. So come in here and I'm trying to get this outline right here is what I'm really trying to do. So I'm trying to get that outline right there. Try to get something like that. Now the trade-off is, as I move around, that outline is also going to move, but it's going to introduce more detail for us. So this outline is good, but I do wish it was a little bit less fat. So let's keep pulling it in so we just get an outline, right? And again, the trade-off is going to be that when we come around here, computer slow today. When we come around here, it's going to disappear on certain angles, but it's still cool because it gives us more detail and it gives us this nice silhouette here. Whereas, with just our straight up curvature node, we didn't have that detail. So the idea is that we're going to combine these two layers to create that extra detail. So to do that, let's go to color and then color layer. And then for our base color, we're just going to leave it black, and I'll show you why. Because right now our curvature, everything is white, right? So we're essentially just going to add this on top of the base layer. So let's go to our curvature, and this is going to be our layer 1 mask. Okay. Now let's show you what happens here. So right now we're not seeing anything, and that's because our base layer is black. So think of this like Photoshop. If you have a black layer on top of a black layer, what's it going to be? It's going to be black. So what do we need to do? We need to move this to white. As soon as we move that to white, now we've got that happening because we're taking our curvature matte that we built before, and we are putting it on top of here. So that's good. That's what we want. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to come and we want to do the same thing for our Fresnel. So we have our Fresnel pass here that again has our detail. And let's take our Fresnel pass and let's put that into layer 2 mask. So think of it like Photoshop. So we need to go to enable layer 2. And you can see right away everything goes on top of each other. Once again, we need to switch this to white because all we're dealing with is white. And let's screen this on top. And let's put it out. So let me take a step back. So if we go like this, I wasn't actually clicked on it. So you don't actually have to, because we're dealing with all black and white, you actually don't have to do this. But for me, I like to actually have it screen just in case there are some details that I'm missing within there. So now what we're doing is we're taking this curvature pass and we are taking this Fresnel pass and we're adding them together. Okay, so this is the new mat that we created. And currently what we have is this right here, right? So let's see what happens when we actually take our new mat that we've just created and we put it into the blend color. So not much happens different. The reason why is that our curvature node, our Fresnel node, I think needs a little bit, we need to push it further because when this is coming through, it's not quite enough. It's not enough for us to actually see the difference. And a part of it is because it's competing with the highlights that are happening from this layer, right? It's like you have these highlights that are sitting there, and you also have this that's sitting there. So I think what we need to do is we need to take a ramp, and this is actually, man, when I learned this kind of changed my world. So like, it's just a really good side tip. Like with ramps, you can pipe them in after the fact, and then it just kind of controls your contrast essentially. So let's just look specifically at this. I'm going to look specifically at this layer, and let's just take our white and let's just pump that white up. Oops, too far. Let's take our white and just pump it up. That way it's gonna, we were kind of in the gray before, like we were here before, so it's pretty gray, so you're not gonna see much, but now we've made it almost pure white, which again, if you're familiar with lumimatting, same concept. So let's go back to our blend color. And now you can see we're getting, I mean, it's quite extreme, but we're getting those highlights now, right? We're actually getting these, nice, outlines that we weren't getting before. This is where we were before. So we're adding detail back into this, which, it's a dance. You got to figure out what works for you. But for me, I think it's nice to have that little bit of detail. I mean, it's a little extreme right now, so I might just take this just down a little bit. So now we just have that. And you'll see as we come around, we're going to maintain that highlight, which is great. So that's good. So we're almost done. The one last thing I want to talk about is if you really want to get like a different type of effect on this. So let's just say you want to make this look like a pencil. How would you do that? Pencils are kind of rough, and they have variation in them. So the most obvious way to do it is let's mat it out with a noise pass. So I'm gonna look at our mat again. So here's our mat, and it looks like it's actually noisy, but it's really not. It's just because it's like a preview. It's not full res render. So what I want to do is I want to come in here, and I want to take a Maxon noise. So let's take a Maxon noise, and let's just see what this looks like when we put it on. Sorry guys, the computer is really slow today. It's just not happy. I think it's because the geometry is so heavy. All right, so this is cool. So this is our noise. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with this. So let's take our noise and let's put the overall scale down to like that. Maybe even like 0.05. No, even lower, 0.01. And then when I was testing this earlier, I like the noise that was like VL noise. All right, so maybe it's 0.05 or something. Yeah, that's cool. So this noise was just giving me pretty decent results. So really all we want to do now is we want to take our black and white map, which we have right here, and we want to mat that mat out with this noise, just to give it a little bit of variation. So the simplest way to do that without overcomplicating things is to come down to color and then color composite. And all this really does is it's just like an A/B type thing. It's just I want to composite one thing on top of another, and then you have your blending modes. So it's the most basic way to do it, which is good because that means less calculating for the computer. So our base color is going to be the mat that we created. Okay, let's just go ahead and look at what we're doing here. And then we want to say that the blend color, which is, again, your Lumimat, it always looks at black and white values. Even if they're color, it's going to look at the black and white range. So we want to take that and we want to mat it out with this noise that we just created. So let's come over to here. And let's say that we want to multiply this, because if you multiply it, it's going to take out all the blacks. So if I scale this up really high, you'll see kind of what's happening. Yeah, just double check and make sure I wasn't crazy. All right, so we need to, for this noise, we need to make it more black, because right now there's too much white, so not enough stuff is actually getting knocked out. So let's come over to our brightness. Let's maybe do something like that. And then let's go to our yeah, okay, sorry, just had a brain freeze. All right, so let's yeah, so now we're getting the results we want. So it's extreme right now, but I wanted to show for effect. Okay, so let's come in here. You'll start to see that this noise now, if we just kind of brighten it up, we can get this kind of, fuzzy look that you kind of would with a pencil. You know, you get this look and everything. And then you can just, yeah, you could really just mess with this until your heart's content. You can come in here, or you could just, yeah, you could just pick a different noise. Like let's get one that's like super obvious. So take a cell noise or something, and then let's make the scale really high. Right, so it's just cutting it out. Like if I come here, you'll see this is the noise, just the noise pass, and then if we go over here, now it's kind of out. So it's kind of trippy actually. So yeah, so again though, like just for our sake, let's do something that looks halfway decent. Let's go back to the VL noise. And man, you could even use this to like do variations in colors. So it's like where it's black here, you could put like a nice like pink or, you know, some sort of gradient that's falling off. Lots of possibilities. But let's just come over here and let's keep the brightness like that, and then let's put our scale back down really small. Let's do like 0.1, 0.06. Oops. There we go. So this is detail stuff, but again, like if you have a close-up shot or something, I mean, this is gonna yield pretty nice results. If I kind of do a full res render here, I'm going to do a before and after. I'll go and take a picture of this. So we got that, and then you'll see what it looked like before. Turn this. Yeah, good enough. So let me just go in picture viewer here. So yeah, it's taken out a lot of it, in a good way though. You know, it's got that kind of detail to it, so that's cool. So let's say that we like this, and let's come over here and let's put this back over here. Turn this off, and I think I do actually want to have a little less contrast, just to make it show a little bit more. But this is actually where your ramp can come in handy. So let's do the old ramp trick again, because this is, I'm telling you, this is when I learned this, it changed my life. But let's say you do like that contrast and you just want to introduce more white. Boom, now you've got it. So I don't have to like compromise on the look just because of the gray values. To recap, create your material, whatever that is. I mean, it could be a piece of gold or something. It doesn't really matter. Create your material. That's your base layer, right? Put it in a material blender. Then you want to determine what your strokes are going to look like. So that is going to be your material, right? So what the heck are my strokes going to look like? And then what are these strokes going to be cut out by? And that's, again, where you create a mat to cut everything out. And you just kind of build on it. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's more about like what you like, you know, like what works for you. Yeah, I mean, if we want to, maybe we like the pencil look, maybe we don't. It's just all up to you to decide what works for your project and, you know, how you want to treat that. But yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning into this one. I hope that it was helpful. You know, one last thing I do want to mention is, man, now with this, you know, Toon shader look, you can actually have bokeh in here. So let's go to our bokeh and let's turn that on. And now, you know, you got these nice bokeh out lines that you can really, you know, play with and have fun. I mean, you got something that's pretty damn nice, I think. And we built this in 20 minutes, you know, and with explaining. So you can build this pretty quick and do lots of fun stuff with it. So I hope that helps. And if you like it, please let me know and I will keep it up. And I will see you on the next one.